This is the Nomadic Traveler Podcast. Welcome to Nomadic Traveler Podcast. I am your host, Jason.
And your co-host, Nicole.
And we have a really awesome show for you today.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Our show today is about climate change and how it affects travel.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of rain lately.
A lot of rain, like ridiculous amounts.
This is near and dear to our heart.
If you're in the Midwest, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and not just rain, tornadoes and
All kinds of stuff, yeah.
lots of things happening. So
Well, the thing that made us, really start thinking about this is the local state park that's always open is closed because they have gotten so much rain.
yeah.
And this park is not a small park. It's what, like 600 acres or something like
Yeah.
that? Or
It's huge.
It's
There's-
huge.
Yeah. Like 3 lakes and a bunch of trails and horses.
And they had to close it completely down because they've gotten so much rain.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like people who were planning their weddings this weekend
Got canceled.
canceled. They have a lodge that has like a water park in it. Canceled.
Canceled, yeah.
Yeah.
So they said that, they had 612 campsites, right?
Yeah, so there's 612 campsites and then 172 rooms and cabins.
So how many people were booked on the campsites, though? Didn't we write that down?
No, it said it was 40% full.
40% full, yeah.
Yeah.
So 40% of the campground spaces were full, and the lodge has 172 rooms. Is that right? And all of the rooms were booked this weekend. Every single one of them was booked, and they had to cancel all these people.
Yes.
So all the campground spots, they said that people that were at the park, that were actually camping at the park, said that they came around and closed the park down and made everybody leave.
Yeah. And there was also, I think they said there was like a family reunion going on.
Yeah, family reunion where they relocated everybody up to
Yeah.
Indianapolis, and
That's crazy.
So-
I did see though they were saying that they were gonna try to put everybody that had booked the lodge in another lodge at a different
in other state parks,
in other state parks.
yeah,
But
where they could accommodate them.
yeah. But then that depends on how close it is to you and
Yeah,
you know.
and if you really even want to be somewhere else. So,
yeah.
and they were talking about. Did we ever say the name of the state park?
So Brown County State
Yeah.
Park.
So
yeah.
the park we're referring to, yes, Brown County State Park, and Nashville, Indiana, is very close, and it's a little small town that's kind of all shops and restaurants and stuff like that. So they were talking about how we depend on all the people from that stay at the state park to come and shop in the town. So if the state park's not open, the town is basically non-existent. Nothing happens.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a little town. You like to walk around, see all the shops. And they were saying, too, with all the rain, not a lot of people are wanting to be out walking around either.
Anyways, yeah.
Every day. It has rained almost every day for the past,
At least last 30 days.
Yeah, every day.
Every day at some point we've
Yeah.
gotten rain.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And I know at first, if some of you out there are like, okay, it's raining, why does that close the park? Because of no water. Well, I found out that basically they treat their own water there.
Yeah, it's the water treatment
Mm-hmm.
facility. So they got so much mud and silt in the lakes that they can't treat it. It's plugging up all of their filtration system with mud and silt, and they simply can't treat it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I'm sure they've got flooding going on and other things as well. So
Yeah, so we were kind of reading about that because I was actually thinking about maybe going soon. And they don't know when it's going to open again. They said Sunday.
they said it's
Yeah.
closed right now for sure through Monday morning. So we're recording this on Thursday. This will come out on Friday. So it's this weekend. So if you listen to this podcast this weekend, it is actually closed this weekend.
Yes. And so it got us thinking kind of like, how is this affecting other types of travel?
Yeah. How is the climate change affecting travel as a whole?
Yeah.
So, and we were kind of thinking locally, but not only locally, how does it affect everything globally as well?
Right. Because I never had thought about it before, other than like thinking about earthquakes and stuff like that. Maybe you won't be going places that have that, but I didn't think about how rainfall could change. your travel.
Well,
I
I
really
think
can't.
about like more hurricanes,
Yeah.
especially when I lived in Florida. I always thought
Yeah, I
about,
guess that's
climate
true.
change creating more hurricanes and larger hurricanes and
Mm-hmm.
higher winds. And
Yeah. So if you're going on a cruise or really anything, you could be
yeah.
kind
So, but what it's
of.
translating into is, a lot more rainfall in the Midwest. So the research that I did said that the warmer Gulf of Mexico is creating warmer air that is coming up and colliding with cooler air from like Canada. And
Mm,
basically it's creating this thunderstorm action over the Midwest where it didn't used to be like this traditionally.
okay. Yeah.
So that's where all of our rainfall is coming from. So it's going to cause more rainfall, heavier amounts, larger amounts in a 24-hour period of time. And it's going to, flood everything out in the spring. And then they said it's going to be hotter days in the later summer and more prolonged droughts later on in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead of getting, traditionally we got, rain progressively throughout the whole entire summer so the crops could all grow. Now everything's getting flooded out. You can't plant the crops. The crops are getting planted later. And then when you do finally get them in the ground, later on you're going to run into drought.
Yeah. It is so
So,
crazy how chain linked that is. One thing happens, it affects the next and the next and the next.
well,
It's crazy.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
that I was kind of thought that, Indiana was a little insulated, from climate change. Because I thought,
Yeah.
well, we're not going to get, hurricanes here. We're not going to get,
Yeah.
all the traditional stuff. But apparently,
We
we're
are.
just as susceptible to it as anybody else is.
Yeah, actually I was kind of thinking the same thing. I thought, well, we're not really close to a lot of large bodies of water or anything, so we should be fine for a
Lake Michigan.
while. Yeah, Lake Michigan. Well,
That's
that's
a pretty
true.
big body of
Kind
water.
of kind of close, but not like an ocean or anything. I
Yeah.
thought, I thought it'd be okay, and I was like, well, we don't have any ice to melt, all these things I was thinking about. And then I was actually reading an article that Purdue University here in Indiana has created. And they just talk a lot about how our seasons have actually changed here. Like there's actually been a shift in seasons. So well, I think most people have noticed it, but I didn't really know that it was like actually documented. I just thought it was something that has been happening, but I didn't know it was like proven. But they were saying Indiana's winter season has shortened by 20 to 25 days
Over what period of time?
over the past 20 years. So 20
That's
years ago,
relatively short.
our winter was almost an extra month long.
So I'm 40. That's half my lifetime.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, you had more time to play in the snow. Because I've been noticing every year, it seems like we get less and less snow. We have cold days still, but less snow, less winter, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And then obviously, so the cold is kind of heading out, and then the extreme heat days are. They said historically in Indiana, there was about 3 extreme heat days, which means they define it as like number of days with high temperatures above 95. And in the now time, it went from 3 to 14 days of average high temperature
Yeah.
in the past 5 years. That was in the 5 years.
Well, and then I just happened to pull a story up just now. You were talking, and I was looking. Remember, we were looking at something where it said like the record was like 9 tornadoes in a 24-hour
Yeah.
period of time. We just broke the tornado record again on June 15th. So 5 days ago, we just broke the all-time tornado record for Indiana. We had 10 tornadoes in a 24-hour period of time.
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah.
breaking records even currently. I didn't even have this information. I just literally pulled this up on my phone. So this is brand new information that I'm inputting right now.
Wow. That is so crazy.
All-time record for Indiana. The record, they've been keeping records since June of 1900. Is that right? Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Well, and another thing if you are from Indiana or you've been to Indiana or you know someone that is in Indiana, we talk a lot about corn. We
There's more than corn in Indiana.
we talk a lot about racing And then we talk a lot about roads and how everybody talks about how terrible our roads are here, right?
Pothole city.
Well, I was reading and it said, because of these higher temperature days, it says the elevated high temperatures can create challenges for roadways and pavements is going to start risking warping and buckling by 2024 is what it says in this. This is what they're projecting.
2024. That's not
That's
very far away.
5 years. Let me do the math. Yeah, like 5 years away. That's
Nicole's not very good at math.
No comment. So yeah, I thought that was crazy. Like I didn't think about it like that. But we already can't even fill our potholes.
Yeah.
Imagine if the roads are warping.
I know.
And if the roads are warping, what about the tires?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like
your tires going to start melting?
Yeah. And then how are you going to travel? How are you going to get anywhere?
That'll make for rough RV travel, won't it?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, could you imagine?
All your stuff will really be falling out of your cabinets. You'll be bouncing back and forth. You'll stop at the campsite and all your stuff will all be all over the floor.
You better not take anything breakable.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other thing they talked a lot about, too, because, like I said, we're known for corn. So it also talked about, like, how the heavy downpours of rain and all this rain that we're getting is kind of eroding our soil and sending, like, chemicals out into our world through the ground. So kind of ground erosion and runoff, which is affecting our water quality, which I didn't even think about that till I read this. I was like, that makes sense, right?
And then didn't we read about they were trying to redo the storm sewer system because they said that they keep getting sewage in the storm system?
Yeah.
But because the rainfall is getting so much worse, what were they investing $2 billion over 20 years?
Yeah.
And they said now they don't think it's going to be enough because of how much worse the rain is getting, even on top of their original predictions.
Yeah, they said maybe they were going to have to make it up to 4. Double it. Which is crazy. You think about that. And that's just Indiana.
I don't know where an extra $2 billion comes from. And yeah, that's just one location. That's, one place, not counting everywhere else in the world. That's all having similar problems.
Yeah. I thought that's amazing. So then, like, kind of later on in the article, they talked about, like, what is Indiana known for recreationally? Like, why do people come here? Right? So,
Indy cars.
Yeah. So they come here, they kind of divide it up into 3 different areas. So, cultural and, like, agriculture, things like that. So, farmers markets, corn mazes, you pick opportunities where you're going and picking different vegetables, things like that.
I love me some Indiana sweet corn. That's my favorite.
Yes. And then, like, heritage and festivals. So, like, the state fair.
I love the state fair too.
Strawberry festival, all these different festivals that we have. And then the third category is, like, outdoor recreation, which they said is kind of the biggest one we have here.
Going to the state park?
Yes.
Brown County?
No Brown Counties. So the Indianapolis 500, horseback riding, fishing. We're really big for fishing and water sports, cycling, those kind of things. Bird watching. Apparently we have a lot of birds here. Didn't know that, but we do. So all those kind of things kind of make up our tourism. And the total amount that we got, so we brought in from our tourism in 2016 was $12.2 billion.
That's a big number.
For Indiana. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. And they're spending 20% of that
to fix our sewers.
to fix stormwater runoff.
Yeah, and they said that type of industry also employs 185,000 people in Indiana.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of jobs, right?
That's a lot of jobs.
Yeah. I would have never guessed. I don't know. I just, maybe because I live here, but I would never thought people are like, I'm going to go to Indiana.
There's no beaches here, so you don't think anybody comes here?
Right, no. There's no beaches. There's no giant landmarks, really.
People do more than go to beaches. I don't know. I kind of tend to do the same thing, too. I'm like, oh, there's not a beach there. Why would anybody want to go there?
Or, like, not like a national park or, like a Grand Canyon. Like, there's no major landmark here.
We do have a lot of state parks.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
There's a lot more state parks than I realized.
Yeah, I guess that's true, for sure. And we have had the Super Bowl here.
Yes.
So that's another thing. I don't know if that's included in this too.
That was exciting, though.
Yeah, we made a lot of money off of that. That was cool.
I went downtown. I
Yeah.
watched people zip line down the street.
Oh, you didn't zip line?
I didn't zip line, no, but I remember seeing people zip lining over me on the promenade or whatever it was.
Yeah, I wanted to zip line
In Super Bowl Village.
That was cool. That was a cool experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another thing too. If your weather is changing and you're having flooding, like if there's a lot of things affecting your city, are you going to get more bids?
For stuff like that.
Yeah, they're going to be like, no, we're not going there.
They do a big convention business here too.
I think about that for like Arizona and places that are already hot. They're getting hotter. No one's going to want to go there for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Phoenix is already pretty miserable as it is. I could imagine if it keeps getting hotter.
Right? People are like, we'll watch it on the TV.
It's like standing on the face of the sun.
For sure. Yeah, so those are kind of like the major categories, and then they kind of talk about like how climate change is affecting each of those categories. So in the water-based recreation, I thought it was kind of interesting. It's a $1 billion industry every year.
So is that like canoeing and whitewater rafting, stuff like that?
Yeah, so it's like canoeing, boating, whitewater rafting, like fishing and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, fishing.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, they said fishing's kind of like the main one, which is interesting. But they said obviously with the flooding, that's decreasing the ability to do it. Also with the hot.
Is it washing all the fish away?
No, because I thought the same thing. I was like, dang, the fish should be happy, right? But I was like, you're getting more water, right? That's what you want. But I was reading and they were saying because the water's actually getting warmer too, that a lot of the fish who need cooler water are having to go down to the bottom of the lakes or whatever, the river. And so then you're not able to catch those fish anymore because they're too deep. And then they're affecting the fish that are actually supposed to be at that level.
You better lengthen the line on your bobber.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. I didn't even think about that. And then also the runoff, like I mentioned before. So all this fertilization that's in the ground and then all this rain is creating runoff, which is going and affecting the water quality, affecting the fish.
I know that was a big issue when I lived in Florida, all the red tide, because the red tide, I believe, is caused by runoff of fertilizers from like sugar plantations and stuff like that. Further inland, it runs down the river, and where the river meets the Gulf, you have red tide, and it kills all the fish off.
That is just so crazy how interconnected everything is.
Yeah. I mean, It was killing manatees. It was killing dolphins. They were having dolphins washing up on the beaches and stuff. I mean, so it's not even like just small fish. It's like, I think they suffocate. I think that's essentially what happens to them. They can't breathe.
Manatees?
Manatees, dolphins, fish. Yeah, that's what they were talking about. They were like, this isn't just like some fish washing up on the shore, because they built like these machines that could kind of pick up all the fish and the seaweed and stuff that would wash up on the beaches and clean it up relatively quickly so things could get back to normal. But you can't pick up a manatee. You can't pick up a dolphin. They're huge. It's a lot different thing to have to deal with.
I love manatees. They're so big.
Well, and everybody loves manatees and dolphins. They're super cute. It's a sea cow.
They're just happy. I wonder if they ever get sad.
Are they happy? They might not be happy. They might be like, will you guys quit polluting our water?
They definitely probably hate us, but
Stop
generally,
polluting the water.
We hate those people.
Could you move along, please?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And then the last thing they talked about in this water-based recreation is people who are out and about, maybe on the water or, fishing or whatever you're doing. They're actually getting affected by the increase in bugs.
Yeah.
So all the flooding and things like that is creating more standing water, which is creating more mosquitoes and...
I hate mosquitoes.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
They love you.
They do love me.
And also like more mosquito like transmitted diseases and things like that.
And then the big thing. Should we talk about the big thing?
Yeah, I guess so.
There's a lot more ticks this year.
Yes. I can count.
The ticks are super, super severe this year. So I don't know if everybody else has noticed this or not, but they are everywhere. Mm-hmm. You need to be checking yourself constantly. We've had to do lots of research. I've seen, and I've had this has been corroborated by other people I've spoke to too. And I've talked to people in like New York and many other places other than Indiana, and this is a huge deal right now. The tick population is like exploded and it's out of control. And they usually like tall grass in like shadier, moist areas. But because there's so many of them, they're getting pushed out of their areas and they're just in like people's lawns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I read an article the other day about a guy who, I don't know what his actual term is, but he deals with ticks with like the CDC or something like that. And he lives in upstate New York, and he was saying that his kid was playing out in the grass. He had an 18-month-old, and when he came in, he had a tick on him. So he was real concerned about that. So he said he took a large piece of white cloth and drug it around his whole backyard and pulled it up to the front and then turned it over, and he had 15 ticks on his cloth just from going around his yard.
That's sick.
And he was like, that's absolutely insane. And they shouldn't be there because his grass is trimmed. It's well taken care of. It's not a habitat for ticks.
Right.
So they shouldn't be there. But because they're getting forced out of their area and because the populations are so high, you know, these are other things that come along with climate change.
For sure. I know that I was always told, you know, just wear a hat, you know, when you go in the woods.
I don't know if that's an old wives' tale, because that's the same thing I thought too. Because I was like, oh, they jump out of like trees on you or something like that. But all the research that I did all said that they kind of come off of tall grass.
Yeah, I know I'm super paranoid. I have never had a tick in my life until this year, and that was a scary thing.
Yeah, I've had one in my whole entire life, and I've seen maybe a half dozen or so far this year, and that's just ones that I've actually seen.
Yeah, and they're not. It's not like they're just in the grass either, because one was just crawling on a little ball, you know,
that we had at the campground last time we were camping. There was a little ball out there that the kids were playing with, and my son found it. He goes, hey, there's a tick on here. And I thought, he's 6, he doesn't really know what a tick is, and he showed it to me, and sure enough, it was a tick.
Yeah, so they're not just like hanging out in the grass like having a good time. They're like, okay, let me get on this ball.
What we had a mat out there too, so it's not even, I mean, there was no grass, it's gravel with a mat on top of it. So it's not an environment for them at all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and that affects things too, because when you start thinking about that, especially, you know, if you're traveling with kids or young babies, things like that, you're going to want to just stay inside. I mean, some people might. That might affect the way that they want to, how much they want to get out.
I mean,
right?
Look how people reacted to Zika. Zika became an issue.
I know, and I think that
people didn't want to go to the Olympics.
Yeah, we think of it as like such a far off thing. Like, okay, all these like diseases from insects are overseas, but they're not, right? I mean, insects go from here to wherever they want to go to and come back.
Correct.
So they can bring anything at any time, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so then it also kind of talks about, you know, the land-based activities. So, you know, just like hiking, trails, different things like that. And it just talks about, you know, obviously the hotter temperatures, no one wants to go outside, things like that. Flooding's going to obviously
Flooding's a big impact because you can't do anything with a flood.
Right, yeah. And then also it says, like, so Indianapolis or Brown County actually specifically is really known for its foliage. Can never say that word.
Foliage. Thank you. Foliage.
And so that's like basically when the leaves change, and it's just beautiful. Actually, fall is my favorite time of year because I love looking at the trees. And
that's the most popular thing for Brown County State Park, as well as Nashville, Indiana, which we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah, people go there to take their pictures during the fall because it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
But because of the seasons changing and the temperature changing and less winter and longer summer, hotter, quicker, they're just, that time is only about like a week long, 2 weeks.
Last year, the season change was literally, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because it just kept going and going and going. I was like, none of the leaves are changed on the trees. Everything's still green. And then all of a sudden I finally noticed, oh, the leaves are finally changing. Oh, the leaves have changed. Oh, the leaves are off the trees.
Yeah.
It literally went, there was no season. It was from green to leaves off of the trees, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Gone.
There was no season.
Yeah. Which is insane.
So that was one of the big things that I noticed. I'm like, something is unusual. Something is going on, and it's climate change.
Yep. Yeah, and then also, that agriculture aspect as far as, the land-based activities. So all those farms and you pick things and festivals based around, farms and that kind of thing, they're all kind of going out too because we're having to change. They said that they're having to start changing what we're planting because a lot of things are no longer suitable for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's another big one. A lot of obviously, there was an article yesterday actually about the corn and how it's just not growing this year.
Yeah, they said that 30% of the corn had only been planted, and this was at the beginning of June. So about 2 weeks ago, only 30% of all the corn in Indiana had been planted, when normally 100% of it would have already been planted.
Wow, God.
So, and then, even the ones around me where they've already planted the crops and stuff like that, we're still having tons of rain. We're still having flooding. So there's still probably, 30% of their crop that has standing water in it, so the crop's not growing.
Yeah.
So even the ones that are in the ground, they're still probably having only about a 70% yield.
Yeah, they're flooding it out.
Yeah.
And corn's so good.
Especially sweet corn. Indiana sweet corn.
Yes. And then another land-based activity is obviously our sports. We talked about that. The 500 is the most popular race, obviously. And then we have the Brickyard 400. NASCAR.
The Brickyard.
Yeah, and then they talked about how actually it used to be always ran the last week of July, but in 2017 they changed it to September because people were complaining about how hot it was.
Yeah, the attendance was going down for years, and everybody was just like, it's just too hot and miserable. We can't go. Which
makes sense because the heat of the cars and the racetrack and everything, and then just already being hot.
And then the bleachers, it's just, it's hot.
Yeah. And then same thing with the 500. They're dealing with that same exact thing. They said in 2018, the temperatures reached past, the hundreds, and 200 people at the race were treated for heat-related illnesses.
Yeah, I went to the race that year, and it was miserable.
Was it?
I have an Apple Watch, and my Apple Watch kept going off with my heart rate alarm. So luckily I was there and my sister was there and she's a nurse, and I said something to her. I was like, my heart alert keeps going off on my watch. I was like, I'm not even doing anything. We're just sitting here in some stands watching some cars go around. She's like, it's just because you're too hot, And I had, maybe a couple of beers or something like that, but it's not like I was drinking heavily by any means. So,
right.
I mean, it blew my mind that I'd never had my heart alert go off on my watch ever before that.
Wow.
And it was just from sitting there in the bleachers. That's how hot it was, that my body was having a hard time.
Yeah.
Keeping me alive, I guess. I don't know.
And the thing I think about with the 500 with that is, like we talked about in our 500 episode, the race is very a family tradition, and people go for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who are elderly who've been, and this is a tradition. And if it keeps getting hotter, that's going to kick them out even earlier, because people eventually stop going when they can't make it around. But if it's hot like that, they can't be out there in the heat. Elderly people can't do that at all. So that's going to mess up that whole tradition of, I've been for 60 years or.
Well, so we decided we're going to have Nicole go around. She's going to mist and fan people next year, so that way everybody can keep up their traditions.
I do enjoy old people, so I probably wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, Nicole loves old people.
I'll just get a drone that drops water.
If you're old and you want to talk to Nicole, Nomadic Traveler podcast at gmail.com. She would love to talk to you.
If you need a mist.
If you need a mist this summer,
water,
give Nicole a call.
Of water, that is, from a spray bottle.
She won't mist you.
And then the final category they kind of talk about is our winter tourism and recreation. So this is things from skiing and different things like that. So they're saying a lot of the resorts. What is the Patoka? Is it? No, what is it? The
Patoka?
Paoli?
Paoli Peaks. Yeah.
So that's a big resort that we have here that you can go, tubing, you can go skiing, snowboarding, all that jazz.
Perfect North Slopes. I used to go there.
Yeah, yep. There's a couple of them, and they're having a hard time keeping up because a lot of their snow is melting and things like that. And then they're having to create fake snow, which is even harder.
You ever tried to ski on fake snow?
I've never skied before in my life.
No, skiing on fake snow sucks.
Does it?
It's like skiing on little bitty ice crystals, and it doesn't react the same, and it's not nearly as enjoyable.
Oh.
I don't like it, at least.
Does it? I wonder if it's not as. I imagine it to be not as soft. So when you
It's
fall,
definitely not as soft. Well, it's not even so much when you fall. It's the more of the way your skis react in it. So the
okay.
way when you're trying to make turns and stuff like that, it wants to slide more instead of cut into it and like make the turn.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
Yeah, yeah. And then
it
also
affects your handling,
yes.
like in a race car.
Also they talk about just ice fishing, different things like that. That you're not going to be able to do as long anymore.
Yeah. You're gonna have a lot of people falling through the ice.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I never thought about it, but it really does affect a lot of our tourism here.
It sure does.
And this is just locally. I mean,
yeah, as I say, and it's not just here.
no.
All right, so we decided to break this episode right here, and we're going to divide this into two different parts. So the first part is going to be the local part, and it kind of focuses more on Indiana and the Midwest in general. And the second half is going to be more of the United States as a whole, and then the globe and how climate change is affecting travel globally.
Yeah. And then maybe some tips at the end about what we can do as travelers.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff in the second half. So if you listen to the first half, please check out the second half next week. It's going to be pretty good.
Yes.
So, and one thing that I introduced next week that I'll give you a little preview of is today's fleeting gem. So instead of today's hidden gem, we're going to do today's fleeting gem. So, and we did one next week, but I'm going to go ahead and do another one right now. So the fleeting gem is something that's going to, disappear. So you should probably put it on your bucket list and hit it before it's not around anymore. So the thing that I think I'm going to do this week is I think we're going to do Venice.
Mm-mm.
So the woes of Venice aren't all due to climate change. After all, if you build a city on top of a water feature and rely on canals to navigate through your entire area, you are certainly eventually going to experience some structural challenges. But increasing water levels and severe weather are hastening the demise of the city. Needless to say, as water levels rise, as it is everywhere, the city becomes less tenable. Contributing to that is the increase in severe floods, where water levels can rapidly rise as much as several feet. The idea of Venice was never one that could last forever, but climate change could strip you of your chance to go for a gondola ride anywhere outside of a Las Vegas casino sooner rather than later. Make plans to visit today. So, you wanted to go to Venice, didn't you?
I did.
Nicole wants to go for a gondola ride and have some suave dude sing to her. She's very excited about that.
Yeah, I would love that. That'd be enjoyable. Yeah. But how long do you think it's going to take?
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay, so I need to go tomorrow.
So you got to get right on it.
All right, I got to call off tomorrow.
So, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's probably going to be about 20 years as, is some of these other places.
Mm-hmm. But
I don't know. We'll see. Unless they, really put something in place to really prevent floodgates, something like that to prevent this from getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and I've noticed too that they like to predict something, and then it seems like everything is speeding up.
Yeah.
Way faster than any prediction. Like nobody's prediction is keeping up with things.
Well, that's why I thought the show was necessary, because I think it's a conversation we all need to be having.
Yeah.
And we all need to be seeing where we can make steps in our lives.
Yeah.
To try to, at the very least, slow this down.
Yeah. And not just
leaving it. If not, at least stop it or possibly start reversing things.
Yeah. And not just leaving it at we don't talk about that because it's controversial kind of issue.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about it so that we can see it.
Yeah.
And know that it's there and then move on.
Let's just have a conversation. Let's acknowledge this is happening. And, take some small steps in our lives to maybe help things a little bit.
Yeah. Because, I want my child to see Venice.
You better take her tomorrow.
Get her a big old life jacket for that boat.
That's right. Got your life jacket, honey.
Yeah, I mean, and I
Don't
think
fall overboard.
and our grandkids, all my grandkids to see things, you know,
They might see things. It'll just be different things.
a lot of black things.
A lot of black things.
Like, I'm thinking
I'm
fires.
confused.
But
Fires.
yeah.
Fires are red and orange.
No, not soot
Oh.
is what popped to my mind. I don't know.
What's left over afterwards.
Yeah, volcanoes and whatnot. All the things.
How'd that go again?
You know.
We're going to have to work on that sound effect.
Let's hear yours.
No.
So you don't have one. Yeah, let's go, Jason. Come on.
I'm not going to get into a sound effect war with you. Thank you for the invitation, though.
Yes. See, this is why this episode had to be two parts.
I'm going to politely decline.
I bet you will. You sneaky snake.
So, and we may do one more episode. As I kind of said in the second part, if you have any information on this, or if you have any questions, comments, anything, please reach out to us at the Nomadic Traveler. Wait a minute. Nomadic Traveler Podcast at gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. If you send us an email, we will read it on the air. So we may do a part 3, and we may read emails from people and do an additional follow-up. And I also have a third fleeting gem. So
Ooh.
if you want to hear the third fleeting gem, we need some emails. So
Put that bait out there.
yeah, putting some bait out there. Just saying, if you want to hear that third fleeting gem,
I know I want to hear.
we need some material.
Yeah.
So, and then I also talked about if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and you do a 5-star review with comments, we will read your comments on the air.
Yeah. And I think it'll be cool if we could do a third episode about discussions, because that's kind of one of our things, is getting people to talk.
Yeah.
So it'd be cool if the third episode was like, hey, this is what we're talking about.
Part of the discussion, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people have a lot of good ideas that they don't spread about what we can do.
What can we do?
I mean, a lot of people have good ideas.
Oh, you don't have any? Are you not people?
I don't really have a lot of good ones right now that I want to share that we are sharing later.
I was talking about the other day that I'd love to have an electric car, and then I want to have solar at my house that can charge the car, so I can literally just bring my car home and plug it in every day and charge it off of solar, and then there's literally no bill to drive my car.
Yeah.
That's like my dream.
That's a beautiful thing.
So I can bypass gas stations. I don't have to pay an electric bill. It's literally, once you buy the car, there is no cost other than maybe some maintenance.
Yeah.
But there is no cost associated with fuel for the car. That's my dream.
That'd be beautiful.
So wouldn't that be amazing?
And then it might last longer.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know. I don't know what the life expectation on electric cars is. I don't know about replacing battery packs and stuff like that. I haven't done enough research, but
yeah. I just imagine like less things getting into your car from gasoline, like sediments and whatnot.
Sediments and whatnot.
You know all the stuff that's in gasoline that actually it's bad for your car. Okay, beyond the point.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys know how my electric car dream works out. That's a plan in the works. I don't know how quickly that's going to evolve. So I'd love to have an all-electric RV that you could charge up and run off solar panels and just be able to travel around and
That'd be amazing.
yeah, and then not have to put any fuel in it. It'd be great not to have an internal combustion engine. It'd be great not to have to do oil changes. Could you imagine something that had solar panels like maybe all the way around it, and it just charged up the batteries, and then you just got in the thing and drove?
That'd be amazing.
So
Yeah.
drive a few hundred miles every day and just not ever have to put any fuel in it.
Gosh.
That'd be so cool.
You could go everywhere.
If you are working on that out there, please let us know at Nomadic Traveler Podcast at gmail.com.
We will definitely let you be a sponsor.
So sponsor, not sponsor. Sponsor will be a sponsor.
If you're a thing.
If it's real. If you can make it real, we want to know.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Is that our show for today?
That's it.
That's everything we got.
All right.
So please leave us a review. Please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Get ready for next episode. It's good.
We'll see you next week.